20 years later, the silence in the room is heavy. Sarah sits in a leather chair, sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows, overlooking a city she now owns pieces of. Across town, Jake sits at a kitchen table that wobbles. He pushes aside a stack of final notices, the red ink screaming for attention. 20 years ago, they were the same. They walked out of the same university, landed jobs in the same city, and collected identical paychecks. They stood at the exact same starting line. But today,
the gap between them is wider than the city itself. One has built a fortress of assets that work while she sleeps.
The other is drowning in a tide of bills that never stop rising. 2 lives, 2 trajectories, and one invisible trap that claimed 90% of everyone they knew. How did they end up so far apart? The answer is not luck. It is not some hidden inheritance. It is a choice made every single morning for 2 decades. To understand how they reached this point, we have to go back to the day the paychecks changed. The promotion letter arrived on a Tuesday. Jake stared at the number at the bottom of the page,
his pulse quickening. It was a substantial bump. Within 48 hours, he stood in the center of a gleaming showroom.
He ran his hand over the polished metal of a car he could not afford yesterday, but could justify today. He signed the loan documents with a steady hand, feeling the weight of the pen, feeling the sudden shift in his social gravity. He drove off the lot before the ink was dry. The engine roared, drowning out any lingering hesitation. He didn't stop there.
He replaced his phone with the latest model and filled his closet with new labels.
Every step was a calculated move to align his external world with his new title. He caught his reflection in a storefront window and tightened his collar, satisfied with the image he projected. He felt the surge of adrenaline that comes with a new acquisition, a rush that made the future feel distant and inconsequential. He was building a life that looked exactly like success, unaware that every signature, every purchase, and every swipe of his card was tightening a knot he would not be able to untie for years to come. The high of the new car lasted exactly until the first bill arrived. Then came the rent for the larger apartment, the credit card statements, and the mounting interest on the loans. By the 12th month, Jake pulled up his banking app, expecting to see the fruit of his promotion. Instead,
the screen displayed a flat, taunting 0. He blinked, refreshed the page, and stared at the same empty number.
The raise had vanished, consumed entirely by the cost of the image he had fought so hard to project. He was working longer hours, taking extra shifts, and skipping lunch, yet his bank account remained a ghost town.
He was running a race where the finish line moved further away with every step.
He spent his energy to pay for objects that lost value the moment he brought them home,
effectively trading his time for items that demanded more of his time to maintain. The exhaustion became his constant companion,
a heavy weight that settled in his shoulders by mid-afternoon. He was no longer working to live, but living to feed the machine he had built. He stood in his expensive living room, surrounded by things he had to work overtime to afford, realizing he was trapped in a cycle of his own design. Sarah received the same promotion letter, the same numbers, and the same opportunity. But when she walked out of the office that afternoon, she did not look at car showrooms or designer windows. She drove her old, reliable sedan straight to her bank. She sat across from an advisor and opened a brokerage account,
moving her raise directly into a vehicle for growth. While her peers traded their time for temporary status,
Sarah began to hunt for leverage. She spent her weekends not at parties, but touring small, overlooked properties and analyzing market trends. She put a down payment on a modest rental unit, signing the papers with a focus that had nothing to do with vanity. She kept her current apartment, ignored the urge to upgrade her phone, and lived exactly as she had before the promotion. Every month, she funneled her surplus into stocks and small business shares. She was building a foundation that remained invisible to everyone else. Where others saw a lack of new possessions, she saw the seeds of a future that did not require her constant presence to survive. She was planting a garden while everyone else was busy buying cut flowers that would wilt by morning. She was quiet, calculated, and entirely focused on the long game. The shift did not happen in a single, explosive moment, but through a series of quiet, compounding victories. It started when the monthly dividend from her stocks arrived, just enough to cover her grocery bill.
Then, the first rent check from her property landed in her account, effectively paying for her own housing.
Sarah sat at her desk, looking at the ledger, and realized the math had changed.
Her money was no longer sitting idle. It was actively generating value while she slept. She watched the numbers climb, seeing how the momentum of her assets began to outpace her salary.
The psychological weight of the 9-to-5 grind started to dissolve. She no longer had to trade her hours for survival. Instead,
she spent her time analyzing new opportunities and refining her strategy. She had effectively detached her income from her physical labor. The assets were now the engine of her life, fueling her existence and providing a buffer that grew larger with every passing month. She stopped working for a paycheck and started working for growth.
She had bought back her time, and with it, the freedom to control her own future.
The cycle was broken, and in its place, a new system of her own creation began to thrive.
A unique opportunity surfaced, a $10,000 stake in a growing logistics firm. It was a clear,
high-growth prospect, but the entry cost was significant. Jake stared at the screen, his cursor hovering over the project summary. He saw the price tag, shook his head, and shut his laptop with a sharp snap.
"That is way too expensive," he muttered, already calculating the months of overtime required to justify such a hit to his savings.
He felt the weight of the cost, not the potential. Across the city, Sarah analyzed the exact same data. She did not see a price. She saw a formula. She pulled a notepad from her drawer and began sketching out projections. She wrote down the entry cost, then the projected dividend yields over the next 3 years.
She tapped her pen against the page, eyes narrowing as the numbers aligned.
"Will this make me 20,000? She whispered to the empty room. She was not looking for a reason to say no. She was hunting for the proof that would make saying yes inevitable. The divergence was absolute. One saw a barrier meant to keep him out, while the other saw a bridge meant to take her further. They were standing in the same economy, looking at the same numbers, yet living in entirely different worlds.
Why does the gap between them persist? The answer lies in the architecture of the classroom. For 16 years, they were forced into rows of desks, taught to raise hands, and rewarded for repeating answers that fit the curriculum.
The system demanded compliance. It measured success by how well they followed instructions to secure a safe job. This is the betrayal. They were trained to be perfect employees, not architects of capital.
The education system provides the tools to earn a paycheck, but intentionally hides the instructions on how to grow wealth.
It creates a workforce that fears risk and prizes the false security of a monthly salary. Every test,
every grade, and every diploma reinforces the same narrow path. It is a factory design, churning out individuals who view money as something they must work for, rather than something that should work for them.
You were taught to study for the test, not to build the empire. This conditioning is the invisible barrier.
It turns potential investors into wage earners who never question why they struggle. The cycle is not a natural occurrence. It is a manufactured outcome. If you continue to play by the rules you were taught, you will remain exactly where the system designed you to be. It is time to stop being the student and start being the strategist.
Think of your wealth like a tree. You plant a seed in the soil. You carry water to the spot every single morning.
For weeks, the ground remains flat. For months, there is nothing to see.
No green sprout breaks the surface. No fruit hangs from a branch, just dirt. This is the stage where most people walk away.
They look at the patch of earth, feel the ache in their muscles from the effort,
and conclude that the seed was a failure. They stop watering. They abandon the plot. But the growth is happening beneath the surface.
hidden from eyes that only crave immediate results. The roots are pushing through the heavy clay, anchoring themselves against the wind, expanding in the dark. It is a silent, grueling process that demands total faith in the work itself. You cannot rush a root system.
You cannot force a tree to mature before its time. The first season is a test of character, not a harvest.
You must keep pouring your resources into the ground, even when the world tells you there is nothing to show for it. If you stop now, the seed dies. If you persist, the structure of your future begins to take form in the places where no one else is looking. You are not failing because you are unseen. You are simply planting.
Then the ground breaks. A single green shoot pierces the surface, signaling the end of the long silence.
For Sarah, the shift is not dramatic, but it is absolute. The first dividend check arrives, not as a wage, but as a result of the capital she planted years ago. It is small, barely enough for a coffee.
But it changes everything. It is the proof that the tree has finally reached the water table. She reinvests that amount.
The next month, the return is slightly larger. The gear turns, then catches, then begins to spin. The grind of the first $10,000 fades into a mechanical hum of efficiency. Assets now pay for her rent.
Those same assets cover her groceries. The money she earns from her day job becomes surplus,
fueling the growth of even larger ventures. She no longer chases the paycheck chases her.
She watches the numbers climb on her screen, not because she worked more hours, but because the system she built has gained its own gravity.
The momentum is now exponential. Every dollar added to the pile draws more to it,
an unstoppable force of compounding interest. The empire is no longer a concept. It is visible, it is thriving, and it requires no further manual labor to sustain. The transition from worker to owner is complete. 20 years have passed. The gap between these two friends is now a canyon. One lives in a mansion, his life funded by the labor of his past decisions. The other stares at a pile of overdue notices, his life still owned by the next paycheck. They started in the same city, with the same salary, and the same 24 hours in every day. The difference was not luck. It was not a secret inheritance. It was the choice to either build an empire or spend every dollar to maintain an image. You are standing at that same fork in the road right now. Every time you open your wallet, you are voting. You are either moving money toward your own freedom, or you are handing it to someone else to build theirs. Stop looking for a shortcut that does not exist. Stop waiting for a promotion to save you. The rich do not get wealthy because they work harder. They get wealthy because they make small, smart, deliberate decisions for years while everyone else is watching. The tree does not grow for the person who quits, and the empire does not build itself. You have the tools. You have the time. The only thing missing is the commitment to start today. Will you continue to feed someone else's dream, or will you plant the first seed of your own?